we come before you this afternoon as we get into the study. We ask for wisdom and understanding, for simplicity of communication, and for people to be able to receive these truths, and may they find a larger place in their hearts. May they not only remain in their minds, for Lord, your truth desires to take hold over every nerve, every impulse. Forgive us of any sins that might hinder us from hearing your voice, and we ask for the presence of your angels to impress these truths home. This is our humble prayer. In Christ's name, amen. So we ended on page 6 of the notes. Page 6, where it says, the Worm's 10 tribes and these kings have been typified by the articles of the Confederation. That's where we ended, page 6. So I noticed there's some things that people didn't get yesterday. And I'm going to try and explain it in a simpler way. Right? So I'm going to ask the question again. Daniel 11:2 says what? The shall yet stand what? And the fourth shall be far richer than they all. And who do we understand that fourth king to be in this day? Trump. And is the president of which nation? United States. So the fourth king is the president of which nation? So the fourth king is the president of which nation? United States. Then I ask the question. Verse 3 and 4 says, verse 3 says, and the mighty king shall stand. And when the mighty king shall stand, there shall rule with great dominion. Right? And do according to his will. What did we say the word do according to his will emphasizes? When you see the expression do according to his will, what did we say it emphasizes in the scriptures?
A new order.
Huh?
A new order.
Yes, a new order, right? A new power rising. Right? We gave examples, isn't it? Daniel chapter 8, when Medo Persia is rising, conquering Babylon, it says, I saw the ram in what? He did according to his will. Daniel 11:16, when Rome is conquering Macedonia to establish its universal empire, it says, he that cometh against him shall what? Do according to his will. When the papacy is rising in Daniel 11:36, it says, and the king shall exalt himself and he shall do according to his will. So when there's a new power rising in the scriptures, the expression do according to his will is put there. You see that? So Daniel 11:2 gives you a list of United States presidents, leading you to the fourth, who's who? Trump. And the next person you hear of in verse 3 is who? Who's the mighty king? Alexander the Great. And we know that it's now a new kingdom because the mighty king stands and he does what? According to his will. So it's a new kingdom. We follow. And when he shall stand, his kingdom shall be broken. We follow. Yeah. Then I asked the question, who's this mighty king? And what did people say?
They say it's Trump.
Trump? People say it's Trump, right? It's yes, historically it's Alexander, but who's he typifying? Then I asked the question, how do we show that we've just said Xerxes is Trump, but we're also saying Alexander is Trump. Then I asked the question to say, is Xerxes Alexander at a prophetic level? And then people said what? Yes. And then we said the interchangeable symbols of what? The same person. But some people couldn't get it, so I want to try and illustrate it in a simpler way. Remember we put this line here yesterday. Cambyses, Post-Smerdis, Darius, and Xerxes. And what does the number 4 represent? The fall of a kingdom. So when you get to the fourth king, what happens to the kingdom? It's destroyed, right? Okay. And then if you look in the structure of kingdoms that's found in Revelation chapter 17, who's the sixth kingdom? America. And who's the seventh kingdom? The UN. So which kingdom rises after the US falls? The UN. The 10 kings, right? So the structure is the same. Sister White says that in Daniel, the same line is taken up as in what? In Revelation. So if Xerxes is a Medo-Persian king, And the number 4 represents the fall of a kingdom. Which kingdom should be rising after Xerxes' kingdom falls? Who's Greece? It has to be which it has to be who in the terminology of Revelation 17. The 10 kings. Greece is the 10 kings. We follow. Okay. So and then we put lines. What did we say about Rome? What does Rome do? What does Rome do? Yeah, but what does it do to a vision?
It
Establishes a vision. And how many things do you need to establish? At least 2 or 3, right? So, if you line up the 4 Middle-Persian kings with the 4 Roman rulers, what did we say would be the 4th Roman ruler? Tiberius Caesar. So Tiberius will be lining up with which Middle-Persian king? Xerxes. And we said Xerxes is who? It's Trump. So who's Tiberius? Trump. Okay. Now, if you look into the history, Tiberius, what did we say what was his administration like? How was his name? Parallel kingdoms. From where, which two? From Capri and Rome. He moved from the capital city. He abandoned the capital city, which was Rome, and he began to rule on Capri. So he's ruling, he's got a castle in Capri, and it's a kingdom that is established, right? Whilst there's another kingdom that's running, which is also ruling. So he's got 2 kingdoms running parallel that is administrating. We follow. And then, what did I say led him to abandon the capital? What is the event that was the turning point? That made him the death of his son. So if that was his only son, so if his son was killed, when Tiberius died, was he succeeded by his son? No, so the kingdom was what? Not given. We follow. So Tiberius has a parallel kingdom, and the kingdom is not what? Given to his posterity. But Tiberius is Roman ruler number what? 4. He's Xerxes. Right? Yes, they are both symbols of the 4th king. But who are we told rules a parallel kingdom, and the kingdom is not given to his posterity in Daniel 11? Alexander the Great. So Tiberius has got characteristics of who? Alexander the Great, right? But Tiberius is king number what? 4. Alexander is who?
4.
The mighty king. Yeah. So who's the mighty king? It's which American king? The 4th, if you're counting from the time of the end. So the 4th king is the mighty king. You follow? Because of the characteristics. So Alexander is who? Xerxes. Because Xerxes is the 4th king. Remember, Miller's rule number 6 says, how does God reveal things to come? Parables. But he often repeats the same thing through what? Different symbols. Is Xerxes a symbol? Yes. Because Trump is not literally Xerxes, right? It's a symbol. Is Rehoboam a symbol?
Yes.
Is Tiberius a symbol? Yes. So the Lord is revealing the same truth over and over again about the 4th king through different symbols. So it doesn't do violence to Miller's rules. That's how prophetic truths are communicated. How do we know as Adventists that the little one in Daniel chapter 7 is the same as the beast of Revelation 13? In Revelation 13, is it called the little one? No. What's it called in Revelation 13? A beast. But how do you know that that beast in Revelation 13 is the same as the little one in Daniel 7? Characteristics. What are the characteristics? Yeah, but what are those characteristics? For you to know that the little one in Daniel 7 is the same as the beast.
Speaking mouth.
Mouth speaking great things? Yes. There's no, the little one doesn't really receive. Yeah, it does, but speaking against Most High, and what?
Wearing away the saints of
the Most High. Yes. And what else? How long is the little one to rule for? 16. How long is the beast to rule for? So you see that the little one and the beast are interchangeable symbols of the same power, because they've got similar what? Characteristics. Now let's bring it to everyday life. You follow? This is a CEO of a company, right? He's 1.8 meters tall. He has 5 children. He's vegan. He's 27 years old and 3 months. This is Elder Joshua. He's an elder at the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He's 1.8 meters tall. He has 5 children. He's vegan. He's 27 years and 3 months old. So who's Elder Joshua? He's the CEO. He's Elder Joshua when he's doing which job? When he's serving in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But he's the CEO when he's where? At work. So the name that he assumes is dependent upon the role he's playing at the particular time. You follow? So Xerxes is emphasizing the President of the United States. But when he becomes Alexander the Great, he's emphasizing the same President of the United States, now assuming a different role. He's now leading Greece. You follow? That's the principle. Is everyone getting it? Okay. So, where did we say Jehu is anointed? Yesterday, where did we say Jehu is anointed as king? At midnight. Because who anoints him? One of the sons of the prophet. And who did we say that son of the prophet represents? The third angel was Elisha's successor. Right? And when does the third angel arrive for the priests? Midnight. Remember we said the third angel arrives at the Sunday law. But because of fractals, at the midnight cry for one group, and at midnight for another group. Right? A step back. Because remember all these groups are a step behind each other. Follow. Right? And we then said this is AD 66. When we're looking at the Abraham's covenant, what happens to Isaac when 30 years from when Abraham leaves Haran? He's weaned. What happens to Samuel when he goes into the temple? He's weaned. But if you look in Matthew chapter 24, when the abomination of desolation is being predicted by Christ, who does he pronounce a war against? Woe to them that give suck, that are with child. So it's showing you 2 classes, right? So there's one class that's weaned at midnight, but there's another class that's giving suck. Right? You see that? So where can you place the abomination of desolation? Based on the fact that when the third angel arrives, the work of separation is complete. One class is totally weaned, and another class is giving suck. So if you have a class that's weaned at midnight, which other class can you place at midnight? Those that give suck. And when Christ pronounces a woe on those that give suck, what was he predicting? The siege and the destruction. And the siege took place in which year? AD 66. And Sister White says that when the siege came, what were the people to do? Flee and tarry not. So you can put the abomination of desolation at midnight. And what do you say the siege represents? A constitutional breach. You remember? Because Sister White ties it with the Sunday law, but we brought it back to a fractal level. Because there's going to be Sunday agitation at midnight. Right? So follow. It's going to be agitation in the Congress and stuff. So when Elisha's successor anoints Jehu, he is told to open the door, flee and tarry not. So the anointing of Jehu is the abomination of desolation. So when Jehu is made king, it symbolizes that there's going to be a constitutional convention or a constitutional issue happening at midnight in the United States. Do we follow? That's where Jehu is anointed. We follow that logic? Yes. So, remember we said Elisha, Jehu, and Hazael, the command is given at the same time. But Elijah doesn't do the work of anointing Jehu and Hazael. Who does he only anoint? Elisha. Did the second angel say so? It's, to one who's willing to see it. You can't, the Omega apostasy, they'll tell you that, really 9/11 was not really fulfilled. But just based on that passage, does Elijah do the work? Yes, he anoints Elisha. So Elisha arrives at the time of waiting. 9/11 was fulfilled. The thing that wasn't fulfilled there is the anointing of Jehu and Hazael. You follow? So it destroys it the way I see it. So we then went to this section of the board. From Xerxes, after Xerxes, we had 9 other Middle Persian kings. You follow? If you exclude Artabanus. Right? It just depends on how you're counting. in these things in history, there's providential things that you can do. Sometimes you can pick some numbers, sometimes you can reject some numbers, depending on the truth you're emphasizing. So I'm saying if you reject Artabanus, as the pioneers did, you've got 9 Middle-Persian kings after Xerxes. And then when Alexander the Great comes to defeat Middle-Persia, he's anointed king of Middle-Persia, whilst he was king of Greece, so he had a parallel kingdom. And he becomes Middle-Persian king number what? Number 10. And you know that the number 10 is associated with the rise of which kingdom? The 10 kings. So Alexander the Great, when he's leading Greece, he's showing you the rise of the 10 kings. Do you follow? And then we said from Rehoboam, I might have said it differently yesterday, but I'm clarifying from Rehoboam, if you count then onwards after him, Jeroboam onwards, you've got 9 kings from Jeroboam. Rehoboam, then you count Jeroboam as 1, right? You've got 9 kings, and Jehu becomes the 10th. Do you follow? Yes, because you remember we agreed that Jehu is Trump, didn't we? And we agreed that Trump is Alexander the Great, didn't we? Yes. So Jehu is Trump. Right? You follow? That's how we proved it. Because the anointing of Jehu was deferred at 9/11. And was Trump supposed to go into office to pass the Son below 9/11? Yes. So he's Jehu. You follow the logic? Yes. So Jehu is the 10th if you count in that sequential order. So Jehu is Alexander the Great. You follow? Just based on this structure, it's identical. Right? So, if you go to page 6, I'm just going to read this point. So, the anointing of Jehu is at midnight. Anointing of Jehu at midnight is also the anointing of Jeroboam. We're not going to touch on the Jeroboam, which by deduction is at midnight. I find it, so do you get the point? You can mark the anointing of Alexander the Great beginning at midnight. Why? Because Jehu is who? He's Alexander the Great. And where is Jehu anointed from what we've been showing? Midnight. So if Jehu is Alexander the Great, where should you see Alexander the Great beginning to be anointed? It's midnight. You follow? Yes. And then it says here, I find it interesting that Alexander the Great represents the US leader who also will lead the 10 kings, Jeroboam's 10 tribes. And these 10 kings have been typified by the Articles of Confederation. And Sister White calls the 10 kings a universal confederacy. And the first step towards the Articles of Confederation. Okay. Now, who's ever heard of the Articles of Confederation? Show by raise of hand. Okay. So it's a handful. So for those who have never heard of what you call the Articles of Confederation, it was one of the attempts during the United. It was a number of presidents that ruled in the United States without a constitution. We follow. And how many presidents presided under the Articles of Confederation? Someone said the right number. 10. There were 10 presidents under the Articles of Confederation. We follow. And what does the word confederation mean in simple terms? A confederation. So you have a president. Can a president be a king? It's a king. So you have 10 kings who are confederates. Articles of Confederation, 10 presidents. You follow? Yes. So 10 presidents. Yes, who are confederates. Everyone getting it? Okay. And Sister White, when she's commenting on the 10 kings of Revelation 17, she says they represent a what? Universal what? Confederacy. And we said the 10 kings is who? Which kingdom? The UN. So the UN is the Articles of Confederation. Do you follow? You see the logic, huh? Okay. So, who is the leader of the UN at the end of the world? Who's going to be the premier king? We're going to say Alexander the Great, right? So, when Alexander the Great is being anointed, technically, it means that the United Nations begins to rise the time that Alexander the Great is anointed. Do you follow? And Alexander the Great, we said, is anointed beginning where? At midnight. So, we should be able to dig in history and see something of the Articles of Confederation that's associated with which way mark? Midnight. You follow? Okay. If you read in Psalm 83, Psalm 83 lists 10 nations that want to cut off God's people. Right? Has anyone done a study on Psalm 83? There are 10 nations that are assembled to cut off God's people. And then the Lord persecutes them with his temple. You follow? And then David says, they are confederate against thee. So that now the 10 symbolizes a confederacy. Joseph's 10 brothers, were they confederate? Yes, they wanted to kill Joseph, right? The 10 spies in Numbers 14, were they confederate against Joshua and Caleb? Yes, they formed a confederacy. So, if you read in your notes, I've got a Wikipedia link which shows you that the first step towards the Articles of Confederation was taken on July 21. And where do you mark July 21? Midnight. This is when President Franklin was introducing it to Congress to be considered on July 21. The Articles of Confederation, which we're saying is symbolized by the rise of Jehu and Alexander the Great. Follow. Are we together? It's the people who know us. Okay, let's say this. Alexander the Great leads which nation? Greece. And Greece is a symbol of who at the end of the world? The UN, the 10 kings. And you said these 10 kings representing what? A confederacy. And Alexander the Great and Jehu are symbols of the same person, right? Yes. And where did we say Jehu begins to be anointed? Midnight. So where is Alexander the Great anointed? Midnight. And we said Alexander the Great is leading a confederacy, isn't he? So when does the confederacy begin to be anointed? At midnight. That's why in history the Articles of Confederation was first brought to view on July 21, which is midnight. You follow? Okay. It's not an accident that Jehu rose to a revolt, a revolution, because he was a soldier who rebelled. The first president of the United States, what did he start off as? George Washington. He was commander-in-chief who led in the American Revolution. So it's a soldier who does what? Who rebels. And we're going to see that Jehu was a soldier who ends up rebelling to become a king. You follow? So they're striking parallels. We're going to bring a lot of lines to support that. When you look at the trumpets, we're going to look at Odawesa, etc. Right? And we hope to show that one of the key things connected with the American Revolution was the introduction of the Constitution. So when America was going through a revolution, what were they trying to establish? The Constitution. But when the American Revolution begins to repeat at midnight, are they trying to establish the Constitution?
No.
No. Jesus illustrates the what? End with the beginning. So what would they be trying to do at midnight? Destroy the Constitution. You follow? Yes. Constitution is, there was a constitutional convention in 1774, which was the first of the 3 steps in introducing a constitution in America. So when the American Revolution repeats in our time, we need to see a constitutional convention at midnight, when the sign of the abomination of desolation is given, which is Rome standing where it ought not. Meaning in the US Constitution, as the Protestants begin to take control of the civil government and push for Sunday laws. More will be said about this coming revolution as we move on. But I want us to see that it's not an accident that Jeroboam is also anointed as the nation was in a revolt. And the government of Israel changed from there. But Jeroboam built a new capital, fortress, which is the constitution, and ends up setting up the image of the beast. Now back to Jehu. I'm arguing that this anointing is at midnight, but he begins his campaign at the midnight cry by initiating a bloodbath, all in the name of getting rid of the evil doers. You're going to see that Jehu's career was to purge Israel of sin. Anyone who's read the story, right? He was going forth in this great zeal to try and, in the name of God, right? But you're going to see that it was blind zeal, which is a characteristic of what you call the Christian right? The Protestant churches. They have this blind zeal that's going to be driving them. Which, okay. Of Alexander, we're told that a mighty king shall stand, and when he shall stand, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided, /scattered towards the 4 winds into 4 parts. So when Alexander the Great's kingdom is divided towards the 4 winds, it broke into how many parts? 4 parts, which is 4 horns, right? Remember, it says there's a notable horn in Daniel 8, and when that notable horn is broken, it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds. We see this. So that's why I have these 4 winds, that are the 4 horns that are scattered towards the 4 winds: north, east, west, south. Seleucus, Ptolemy, Lysimachus, Kasane. Right? You see that? So one can be a symbol of what? A king. Daniel 7. These 3 horns which are also the what? 3 kings. Okay, let's read on. But we have also come to understand that a 4-fold scattering marks the progressive fall of a kingdom, based on Daniel 4, where the scattering of Nebuchadnezzar is mentioned 4 times. So I'm saying the number 4 represents a progressive scattering. You follow? We are told that the kingdom departed from him. So Nebuchadnezzar, when his kingdom is departing from him, the Lord uses the number 4 as a symbol of his progressive scattering. Do we follow? So the scattering of Alexander's kingdom into 4 parts is identifying the progressive but rapid fall of the USA, which is marked at the midnight cry to the Sunday Lord one level. These 4 horns of Alexander mark the fall of his kingdom, but it was not given to his posterity, which means children. Do we see this for Jehu? Does anyone have notes to read so we can engage in that? We're now on Wednesday, 2 Kings 15:12.
I just wanted you to look at some of us remember that somewhere concerning that you mentioned George Washington, remember? The president of America, you line with Jehu as the commanding chief of rebellion. So, just to make it, don't take time just to make it clear, and how do you use the George Washington as a symbol, lining up with Jehu, and then you take George Washington and put it for Trump, because we're speaking of the fourth president.
Okay, George Washington is the first president, and we've agreed that Trump is the last.
Yeah.
So Trump is George Washington.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe to be clear on that.
Clear. Maybe you're not understanding the question.
No, I just wanted you to be clear on that one. Some of us, maybe you won't understand.
Oh, okay. Okay, you want me to be clear for the benefit of everyone, right? Trump, we've understood that Trump is the president number, is the watch of the United States. Yes. But who was the first? George Washington, right? So I'm saying that George Washington becomes a symbol of Trump, and George Washington goes through a revolution. So Trump is going to cause the United States to fall through a revolution. You follow? So, and we've already shown that Jehu is a symbol of Trump, and we're going to continue building on that as well. So continuing on. So the scattering of Alexander's kingdom into 4 parts is identifying the progressive but rapid fall of the USA, which is marked in the midnight cry. Okay, I read this. So someone's supposed to read 2 Kings 15:12. Who's there on the notes?
This was the word of the Lord which he spoke unto Jehu, saying, Thy son shall sit on the throne of Israel unto the 4th generation. And so it came to pass.
Okay, so read the explanation.
Okay. Jehu has 4 sons who ruled him after he dies. After he dies, and the king is born, and the king is the horn. These 4 sons mark the fall of the house of Jehu. So his kingdom was divided into 4 parts, and not to his prosperity, because these 4 sons inaugurate or bring in the fall of the house of Jehu, but it was a 4-fold scattering. The elder has done the study where he lines up the 4 sons of Jehu with 1989 Jeroboam the second. Yeah?
Okay, so we pause there. Let me explain that part. Okay, but did you get the first part of that? How many sons of Jehu were to sit on the throne after him? 4. They were to reign as kings, right? And you said the king is a horn. So his kingdom was divided into how many parts? 4 parts, same as Alexander the Great. You follow? And both their kingdoms are divided into 4 parts when they die, isn't it? When they die, there's a 4-fold division. When Jehu dies, you have 4 sons, right? Then there's some things that shouldn't cause us to stumble. Alexander's generals ruled at the same time, but Jehu's sons came in succession. But we're going to see prophetic symbols that appear like that, but they teach the same truth. You follow? Yes, because we said the Articles of Confederation is how many presidents? 10, but did they rule at the same time? No, they came one after the other. But we said they typify who? The 10 kings. Will the 10 kings rule together at the same time? Yes, so it's the same principle. Right? So I'm saying all the Jehu has done a study. I think it was Alberta 2015, where he lines up Jehu's 4 sons with 4 waymarks, right? I can't explain that in too much depth, but you put Jeroboam 2 at 1989, and then you put Jehoahaz at 911, and then you put Joash at midnight, and then you put Zechariah at the Sunday or at the midnight cry, right? Now, a simple example is Jehoahaz means Jehovah is restrained. Do you see a restraint at 911? Yes. Joash means God's fire, because you can show that at midnight the temple is open to Isaiah, and he's touched the coal from off the altar. There's fire from off the altar, so you can mark fire there. You can mark Pentecost at midnight, God's fire thrown down. I won't explain too much in depth, but you can put Zechariah at the Sunday door, because what does Zechariah's name mean? It means remember. Is there remembering at the Sunday door? Yes. So I'm saying all the Jehu has done a study where he takes the 4 sons of Jehu and he lines them up with these waymarks, right? So what I'm going to explain in the next section is what I want you to get as well. It says this. So read on, Tip.
Okay, so
just after you can line up the 4 trumpets.
you can also line up the 4 trumpets with those same waymarks. What has been noted is that all 4 trumpets are connected with the wind, meaning the gods are from the north wind, and the bundles from the south wind, the hands from the east wind, the herula from the west wind. So these trumpets are 4 winds of heaven, which mark the fall of western Rome, which typifies the USA. Alexander's kingdom is divided towards the 4 winds. So the 4 sons of Jehu teach the 4 division of the USA, because they line up with the trumpets. 4 winds also symbolize revolution, which attempt to tackle it. We will attempt to tackle that in the coming section.
Okay, so I want to make this simple, right? I'm saying that here, if you take the trumpets of Revelation, I'm sure a lot of us have done that study, where you can line up the trumpets with the waymarks, right? You're familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
You can put the first trumpet in 1989, showing you the rise of those were the winter school nobles, the Christian right? The Christian right, Pat Robertson, Alaric. And at 9/11 you can put the second trumpet, Islam, Jinseri. And at midnight you can put the third trumpet, Iran's, Russia. And at the midnight cry you can put the 4th trumpet, the Trump administration, all the way, the herula. Now, what that's showing you is this. If you look at the direction from where those trumpets came from, they both, each of the trumpet came from a particular direction of the compass point. You follow? So I'm saying the gods under Alaric, they are described as a hail, right? In Revelation 8. It says a hail mingled with fire thrown onto the earth. And the earth can be a symbol of the USA. It's a judgment of the USA. And when you do a study in the Bible of the hail is associated with the north. You follow? Hail is identified as coming from the north. So hail is connected with the north wind. You follow? But when you look at the second trumpet, the ships of Kiddim, Genseric, right? The vandals under Genseric came from the south. Do you follow? The vandals came from the south. So they associated with the south wind. Because Rome was up there, and the vandals would attack from the southern area. Do you follow? But the Huns came from the east. If you look at the Huns, they came from the east. Right? And we identify the Huns can be a symbol of Russia. And during the Cold War, in the Cold War from that time before 1989, it was a war between who and who? East and West. Who was east? Russia. Who was west? The United States. Right? So the east can be a symbol of Russia, and the Huns came from the east. So you've got the gods from the north, they're from the north wind. The Vandals from the south, south wind. The Huns from the east east wind. But all the waster of the fourth trumpet came from Rome itself. He came from western Rome itself. So he coming from which wind? The west wind. So the four trumpets are what? The four winds of heaven. Do you follow? They are the four winds of heaven. So I'm saying Alexander's kingdom is divided towards what? The four winds. Jehu's sons are broken into how many parts? Four winds. So if you can line up the four winds of heaven with all these waymarks, and you can line up Jehu's sons with all those waymarks as well, it means that Jehu's sons are emphasizing a scattering of his kingdom towards the four winds. We follow? So reading on, we're now in a section where it's written Jehu's reign of terror. In the French Revolution, when France, we're going to look at Robespierre, how he rose, etc., to show that you can show that Robespierre begins. There was a constitutional convention in France where Robespierre was being, risen to prominence by the masses. And then what does Robespierre end up doing in France? According to great controversy, the Jacobites. Great controversy, basic absolutism. What did the French Revolution end up as? Reign of terror, despotism of bloodshed. So we're saying France typifies who? The United States. And France, the French Revolution began with a constitutional convention, which resulted in a bloodbath. So we're saying there's a constitutional convention at midnight, which is going to result in a bloodbath at the midnight cry. You follow? Yes. So Jehu's reign of terror. So I'm going to read. Jehu was Alexander the Great, who began his campaign to Middle Persia with 70 pieces of silver. So when Alexander the Great is going to conquer the USA, Middle Persia, how many pieces of silver did he have? 70. Remember why I was emphasizing Ezra 7:9? Where do you place the number 70? Midnight cry, onwards. So you already know that when does Alexander the Great begin to rise? The midnight cry. We see that because of the number 70. So when we're looking at the abomination of desolation, AD 66 is a sign that was preceding the destruction of Jerusalem in which year? AD 70. So this would be AD 66. Where would AD 70 be? Midnight cry onwards. You follow? Yes. So I'm going to read this extract from John Privé's, Envy of the Gods, page 18 to 19. He was known as Xerxes the Great, but he took the official title Shahanshah, which means King of Kings. So he called himself the ruler of the world, usually translated as emperor. When Alexander was shown the king's treasury, there was 120,000 talents of gold and silver. It says brilliant. I don't know if that's correct. Should be. Yeah. For contrast, Alexander the Great began his invasion of Persia with 70 talents of gold. Xerxes had the largest single concentration of wealth ever known in history at that time. So, when Alexander goes to Middle Persia, Xerxes' treasury is open. And Xerxes has got how many talents of 120. So where does Xerxes' kingdom begin to come to its end? At the midnight cry. When it's far richer, it's falling. You follow? Where the 120 meets the 70. Where Xerxes meets Alexander. Daniel 11:2 meets Daniel 11:3. We follow? Yes. So here, we mark the number 120 from 9/11 to the midnight cry based on Ezra 7:9. We also mark 70 from the midnight cry to the Sunday law based on Ezra 7:9. The midnight cry onwards is the time when the Gentiles are being awakened. The Gentiles are the Greeks. I think I'm going to explain this as we go on. Someone to read 2 Kings 10. Just read the whole.
2 Kings 10 verse 1. And Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria, and Jehu wrote letters and sent to Samaria unto the rulers of Israel, to the elders, and to them that brought up Ahab's children, saying, Now, as soon as this letter cometh to you.
So just skip to verse 6.
Verse 6. Then he wrote a letter the second time to them, saying, If ye be mine, and if ye will hearken unto my voice, take ye the heads of of the men, your master's sons, and come to me to Jehu by tomorrow, this time. Now the king's sons, being 70 persons, were with the great men of the city which brought them out.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh, verse 7 as well, yeah.
And it came to pass when the letter came to them that they took the king's sons and slew 70 persons and put their heads in baskets and sent them to Jehu.
8.
And there came a messenger and told him, saying, they have brought the heads of the king's sons. And he said, lay them in 2 weeks at the entry of the gate until the morning. So Jehu slew all that remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men and his kinsfolk and his priests, until he left none remaining.
Go to verse 14.
Verse 14. And he said, take them alive. And they took them alive and slew them at the pit of the shearing house, even 240 men. Neither left he any of them. And he said, come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So they made him ride in his chariot.
So do you see this? Jehu, when he's now made king, what does he bring to Israel? A reign of terror. He's martyring, right? He's killing. And how many sons of Ahab does he kill? 70. So where would you mark the bloodbath in the time of Jehu? When they cry onwards. And what is he doing to them? Beheading. What was the method, the primary method of torture in the French Revolution? The guillotine, the national razor. You know that, right? The national razor. So this is the American Revolution. Radical phase. Right? You follow? So what's going to be coming when this constitutional convention happens at midnight? What's the result? A bloodbath. When the Protestants take control of the government, they're going to bring a Christian reign of terror at the midnight cry onwards. Purging of evildoers. You're going to see that what's driving the Christian rights, the Christian coalition, is they want to get rid of the evildoers. Those that piss against the wall. We're going to look at that phrase. Right? And we saw the number 42, right? Did we? Yes. What's the number 42 a symbol of? There's 42 sons that were killed. Huh? It's a symbol of persecution, right? And you're going to see that Zvorwadza begins his campaign of killing people in Western Rome when he was 42 years old. So you're going to see those. And in the French Revolution, when the 2 witnesses are slain, how long are they given a testimony for? 1260, which is how many days? 42 months. Right? So the number 42 is associated with the revolution. Plug it right there. So I'm going to read the explanation. I am suggesting that the bloodbath by Jehu begins at the midnight cry because of the number 70. Also, when Jehu is anointed, he is anointed to deal with those that pisseth against the wall. And the wall can be understood to be a symbol of the Constitution, GC 25, paragraph 4. Because the wall is a law, and the law of the USA is enshrined in the Constitution. It is the purpose and motive of the Christian right to insert its radical ideas within the Constitution of the USA, because they argue that it has been pissed against. And I believe that at the midnight cry, they will pass the first Sunday law, and a decree similar to the law of suspects passed during the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror, and begin to punish the evildoers. Jehu also slays 42 people by the shearing house. The number 42 is associated with persecution, and the French Revolution. Persecution in the French Revolution, and shearing sheep is a characteristic of the midnight cry. In 1 Samuel 25, Nabal manifests that he's a foolish virgin, as his name also suggests, by failing the tenfold test. The number 10 is a symbol of the test. Revelation 2:10, Malachi 3:10. Symbolized by David's 10 men. 1 Samuel 25, verse 5. Nabal is a foolish virgin at one level, but at another level he probably represents the corrupt people of the land at a basic level, since he pisses against the wall, and he drinks like a king, which is the same scenario with Belshazzar, who is drinking as a king. Then he sees the handwriting on the wall, identifying that his kingdom is divided, which you can place at the midnight cry. So the punishment intended by David is associated with the pissing against the wall, which is the same expression used for the punishment of apostate Israel by Jehu at the midnight cry. Nabal was at Carmel, which is a city. And what's a city a symbol of in the Bible? A kingdom. Also, the place where Elijah is contending with the prophets of Baal is Mount Carmel. And a mountain is a symbol of a church. So if you have a Carmel, which is a city, and a Carmel, which is a church, what's that? Church and state. The church and state come together at the midnight cry. This is the image of the beast. The satanic marriage, right? So when you bring the two Carmels together, you have a city and a mountain, which is a church. Nabal was in Mayon. Now I'm going to explain what I just read. I'm saying when Jehu is initiating this punishment, he's punishing people that have been pissing against the wall. You follow? And when David has got a punishment intended against Nabal, Nabal was at the midnight cry. Because it's in Carmel, right? And you bring the other Carmel in the story of Elijah. You've got a Carmel, which is a city, and Carmel, which is a mountain, so it's church and state. You follow? So the pissing against the wall, the punishment against the pissing against the wall can be marked at the midnight cry. Because the word is the constitution. When Jehu is anointed as king, he is to deal with those that have been pissing against the wall. Because you're going to see that the argument that the Christian right is going to have for the Sunday law is they're going to be saying we need to bring God back into the constitution. Do you follow? So that's going to be the motive that's driving them. Let's bring God back into the constitution. So I'm saying Nabal is here and he's pissing against the wall. And Jehu was punishing those people, the 70 sons of Ahab, that are pissing against the wall. And Nabal was in Mayon, right? Now I've got a strong explanation of where you find the place Mayon. It says a city of Judah located 8 miles from Hebron. Right, you see that? 8 miles from Hebron. Then I'm going to explain. Mayon was 8 miles from Hebron, and you can show that Hebron can be placed at 9/11 because of David's second anointing when he was 13. Right. I'm saying you can place Hebron at 9/11. I'm saying Nabal is in a place which is 8 miles from Hebron. Do you follow? Yes. But I'm saying Hebron is a symbol of 9/11. Because how many times was David anointed? 4 times. Where do you mark David's first anointing? 1989. Where do you mark his second anointing? 9/11. Because when he's anointed the second time, he's only reigning over which tribe? Judah. Right? Adventism only. There's no public evangelism here. Tarry in Jerusalem. Right? And tarry in time. But when he's anointed the third time, where does he move the capital to? Jerusalem. He renames the capital from Jebus to Jerusalem. Right? Where do you mark Jerusalem on the line? The midnight cry. So this is David's third anointing. So his second anointing preceded, right? He's at 9/11. So I'm saying this is Hebron, where David is anointed the second time. And where Nabal is pissing against the wall at the midnight cry is a city 8 miles from Hebron. You follow? So I'm saying from 9/11 to Hebron to Mayon, you can plug the number 8. And then in the book of 2 Chronicles 29, this is watching the Cariite calendar, 9/11. The first day of the first month. In 2 Chronicles, what begins to happen on the first day of the first month? The temple begins to be cleansed by who? By the priests for how many days? 8 days. And then who cleanses after the priests? The Levites for how many days? Another 8 days. And the Levites were cleansing which part of the temple? The court. They were cleansing the court. So I'm saying from the midnight cry to the Sunday law, you can place the court. Do you follow? Everyone follow? And in the Bible, who's the court given to? Revelation 11. Leave out the court where it is given to the Gentiles. So this area is where you begin to see the Gentiles, don't you? In the court. Now, in Desire of Ages, I'm not going to. Okay, let me read from the notes and explain. The court is a place where the Gentiles or Greeks came to inquire. See Desire of Ages 68. In Desire of Ages chapter 68, there's a couple of Greeks that come into Christ to inquire. We know that story, right? What had those Greeks heard of that caused them to inquire? The triumphal entry. What's the triumphal entry? The midnight cry. In which part were the Greeks who came only allowed to get to? The court. So the court is a place given to who? The Greeks. And who are the Greeks? The Gentiles, the 10 kings. So if the midnight cry is the place which awakens the Greeks, when did the Greeks begin to arise? Midnight cry. Alexander the Great begins to rise at the midnight cry in the court. You follow? Everyone together. Okay. And okay, let me just say it because it's there. The number 68 is profound, and I just thought of a little nuance because Nero's kingdom is divided into 4 parts. Okay, let me just say it. When Nero dies, we're going to show that Nero is a symbol of the last president as well. When Nero dies, he was the same age as Alexander the Great. When Alexander dies, his kingdom is divided into how many parts? 4 parts. And how old is Alexander? 32. How old was Nero when he died, according to Acts of the Apostles? 32. Right? And when Nero dies, what begins in this nation? A civil war, which is known as the year of the 4 emperors. And where's Brother Tabo been identifying the civil war? The midnight cry. So, because it says, and the mighty king shall stand, and when he shall stand, what shall happen to his kingdom? It shall be divided. What does it mean when the kingdom is divided?
It's not standing.
It's not standing, but it's civil war. We know that. When the kingdom is divided, it's civil war. If you look at 1 Kings 16:16, midnight cry. The story of Omri. It says, and the kingdom was divided into 2 parts. Some followed Omri, some followed Tib. And they were fighting, there was a civil war. So when his kingdom shall be divided in the midnight cry, it's identifying a civil war coming in the United States. We follow? We follow? Yes. Now, the Greeks are also called the 10 kings, which is the Igbo confederacy. And they are this word. And they are a plurality of the threefold union. As we know of the singular, plural fashion, when the threefold union is marked in scripture. We know these basics, right? If you want to understand the threefold union in the Bible, from the old material, that is very key. How do you locate the threefold? How is it often expressed in the Bible? In a singular, plural fashion. Daniel 11:41. Who shall escape out of the land? Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. This one is plural. You see that, right? You see the threefold union is made up of the United States, the papacy, and the 10 kings. They are plural. You see this? The plural aspect of it is identifying the dragon power, the UN. Do you see that? Yes. Okay. These kings are also known as the assembly of dogs. What was Elder Paminda telling us the dogs are a symbol of? Gentiles. So dogs are a symbol of Gentiles, right? So I'm saying when you see dogs in the scripture, they can be a symbol of the UN. You follow? Crucified Christ, and Christ died during the reign of Tiberius Caesar. In Psalm 22:16, Christ says, David is writing a psalm and he says, the dogs have assembled against me. When he's talking about the cross. But who was the king during that time? When Christ was killed? Tiberius. So in the time of Tiberius, who's also assembling against Christ? The dogs. So Tiberius is going to be leading whom? The dogs. Tiberius is a symbol of the 4th king. So in the time of the 4th king, the dogs are there to crucify Christ. We see it. Tiberius Caesar, who is a symbol of the 45th president, who will lead in the 10 kings. Nabal was at Mayon shearing sheep, which were identified as the midnight cry. And Mayon also means, now I've got it's for those who want to look it up, it's Hebrew 45, 83. Hebrew 45, 83. Psalm 83 talks about the 10 kings. 45, 45th president. And this is what Mayon means when Nabal is at the midnight cry. Mayon means a refuge of jackals, but a jackal is identified as something resembling a dog or a fox, but it's also a wild dog. So, Mayon is the place where the wild dogs are coming in, the midnight cry. Do you see that? Do you see it? Yes. Okay, I'm going to read this last part. I hope I can just finish this one. Inspiration is noting Jehu's zeal for the Lord, but Sister White will show us that his zeal is misplaced zeal. It is a zeal for tradition, because Jehu went out on a tangent as the corrector of the heretics to to rid Israel of the evildoers by declaring to the sins of Jeroboam. And what did Jeroboam do famously? You made an image to the beast. So what is Jehu going to do? Set up an image of the beast. False altar building and false images, which is basically Sunday sacredness. Because the true altar is Christ, thus a false altar is Antichrist. Jehu is a classic example of a Pharisee, and I'll put some references below. He represents those who have blind zeal, who persecute those who do not do or adhere to their beliefs, which is basically Catholicism. Sister White will show how there is a striking similarity between the church in the time of Christ, specifically the Pharisees, and the Roman church. The Roman church we understand to be the king of the north, which is Babylon. But Babylon is divided into 3 parts, Revelation 16, 13, and 19, which is the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet. The USA is the false prophet, and its religion is apostate Protestantism. And these churches are identified as taking over the civil government to push their religious ideas and begin to punish those who do not agree with them or get rid of the evildoers. So since the apostate sects are a third part of Babylon, they are also Babylon, thus making them the king of the north, who uphold the religion of the Pharisees. So Jehu is a symbol of the President of the United States, who is under the control of the apostate churches. Did we follow that logic? Now here's a quote from my sister. I'm not going to read these quotes. Perhaps I should explain what I mentioned and pick up the quotes in a different study, because I have like 3 minutes. But basically, in closing, we're saying Babylon is divided into how many parts? 3 parts. So all those 3 parts are Babylon, right? And Babylon is the king of what? The north. You follow? So Jehu, Sister White is going to show us in the next study that Jehu is a classic example of a Pharisee. A Pharisee is characterized by their blind zeal. Yes, and then we're going to read a quote where Sister White says that there is a strong similarity between the Pharisees in the time of Christ and the Roman church. You follow? But is the papacy doing an open-handed work these days? No, who's the papacy using? The daughters. The daughters, because she says the mother has had her day, right? But the daughters are working out the mind of the mother. So the daughters are the Catholic representatives, right? Yes. So we're saying Jehu is a symbol of a person with blind zeal, which is a Pharisee. And there's a striking similarity between the Pharisees and the Roman church. But we're saying that the Protestants are the representative of the Roman church. So if Jehu was a Pharisee, who's controlling him? The daughters, the Protestant sects, right? So the Protestants are going to use Jehu to drive their agenda and push for Sunday laws. We follow that logic? Yes. I'll try and explain that in the following study. Last question before we have time off.
You've mentioned something about peacing the world, and Jehu was persecuting those who have peaced the world. So can you kindly please peace the world?
Well, Sister White says that the law of God is a wall of protection, right? So what's a wall? It's a law. And where's the USA's law enshrined? The Constitution. So what's the wall? The Constitution. So if Jehu was punishing people who are pissing against the wall, he's punishing those who are messing up the Constitution. And when you look at the motive for the Sunday law, it's going to be an amendment to the Constitution. Because the National Reform Movement, the Christian right, one of the agendas has always been, we need God back in the Constitution. You follow? So when he's punishing those, he's trying to amend the Constitution and bring God back in it. That's basically what's being identified. Last one, let's pray.
Looking at the illustration of the grown my own Sunday law, the temple and the courtyard there. So, meaning to say, at MC, that's this is close of probation of the Sunday law to the priests or Levites or
MC,
yes, using that diagram.
This is the shut door for the Levites. So close probation for the Levites. The priest's close probation is at midnight. The Levites at the midnight cry, the Gentiles on the Sunday law. But the shut door is a period of time. Right? It's a period. The binding off is a period. But when you get to the beginning of the period, the door is closed. But there's a progressive work of binding. Maybe I can explain those later. Let's pray. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity you've given us once again to study. And we continue to pray, Lord, that these truths might find their lodging place in our hearts. That, Lord, we might surrender our will, ourselves into your hands, that we might reshape us in your image. And Lord, we know what the great test is. It's the prophetic test. And we need to understand, Lord, how we can stand in the coming crisis. Be with us now as we prepare for the next section. We pray for all these in Christ's name. Amen.